And then our second talk will be about land, people, culture, moving beyond standards, building policies for better lives. Katerina Mavromikali, she is an archaeologist, museologist in art therapy. She is a directorate of archaeological museums, exhibitions, and educational programs. She's also an advisor in the interdisciplinary team for cultural prescribing, a national project of the Hellenic Ministries of Culture and Health. Besides, she is a member of professional scientific bodies, interim general secretary of the European Federation of Art Therapy, co-leader of EFAT's SIG Art Therapy in Museums, ICOM deputy member of the Hellenic Administrative Board, among others. Now we will move to the third and final speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining our session today. I would like to thank the conference team for the invitation. It's an honor to be with so prominent colleagues from all around the world today. My presentation has as a basis, as a hallmark, the Nakba, but not only as a point of reference for destruction, but also for the building of resilience and empowerment. And is also connected with the launch of the first MA in art therapy in Palestine, here in Dar al-Rima, with Professor Nauraz as the lead of the program. So I will begin my presentation with the words of the Greek philosopher Sophocles. Πολλά τα δεινά και ουδέν ανθρώπου δεινότερον πέλη. So there are many wonderful things in this world, but the most wonderful of all is men. And this humanistic, human-centered approach is going to be reflected in my presentation today in the way that we give a key role to arts and culture in terms of health and policy. And we're also going to see the dynamics of interdisciplinarity and the connections between arts and health. In a dialogue with the transgenerational trauma of the nation, I will make reference to the Greek example when we had the Greek presence erased from Asia Minor with the catastrophe of Smyrna in 1922. So the only thing that was left was ruins, death, and the dreadful exchange of populations, and the impact of this is still experienced today. My grandparents were among these people. And 200 years ago, the Greek struggle for independence started, and I would like to highlight the role of culture in terms of how we develop our national and cultural identity in order to give this sense of continuity and resilience. And I would like also to pinpoint the role of the Greeks of the diaspora, which was really important for the support of the cause, as it is for the Palestinians of the diaspora that we see so strongly in this conference. One of these intellectuals said that to these stones we owe our political renaissance. And the newly formed state started its function through restoring the tranquility of the ancient monuments. The first collections were kept in ancient monuments and in schools and universities, but very quickly there was the demand for a national museum, which was funded by the Greeks of the diaspora. So we have the object myth in the land myth, Athens. So we see how creative placemaking is connected with the development of national and cultural identity, and also with the spiritual well-being of the nation. Today, we have regeneration plans for the National Museum, and creative placemaking is connected with the ways that we can create a cultural, sustainable, and social space today. And so you see how the museum is going to enhance the dialogue with the city, with the society, will have a fresh look into the management of the collections, and they will use an eco-friendly approach. Regarding now the decolonizing process, I will make a reference to how we revisit some tools and practices in how we reframe the present and recontextualize the social memory so as to restore caring and justice. And I will make reference to the long-term loan policy that we used regarding recently an agreement with the Metropolitan Museum in terms of now known up till now Cycladic antiquities collection of the American collector Stern. And this opened a cultural path to cultural diplomacy regarding the dialogue that we have with the British Museum and in the ways that we can solve this old dispute. And the people of the British Museum start seeing now the Parthenon marbles both in Athens and in London through the use of this policy. And as we reimagine what it needs in order to achieve sustainable development, I will make a reference to two programs, pilot programs, and I'm in the interdisciplinary teams that work on them. And the first one is a museum's accreditation system, and we work for inclusive, sustainable, green, trusted, resilient museums. And the second one is art on prescription. So this is about introducing art programs and connecting them with the national health system. It is about training art professionals. It is about research and evidence-based practice, fighting against the stigma of mental health and providing social support and prevention. Can we imagine the world without arts, culture, and collections? There was published recently the outcome of a survey, and people from all around the world answered no. Culture is our roots, is our heritage, is our memories, is joyful moments, learning, and spiritual well-being. So we are at the point where arts is not just a privilege of the few. It's not only at the last step of self-actualization according to Maslow's pyramid of needs. We are at the point where we can use art for social transformation to meet those basic needs. So we have the birth of a new museology on the rise, which focuses on wellness, on the connection of national and world policies, on partnerships and interdisciplinarity. So there is a very dynamic interplay between the mind, the arts, and the land. And at this moment that we are talking, Johns Hopkins University is developing great research on that. And they show how an art experience can be so transformative, having an impact on more than 50 sensory systems, on our cognitive, on our emotional functions, on our immune system. This is also connected with the added symbolic value of objects. So we have a new field, psychotherapeutic object dynamics, and gradually we have the development of cultures, ethics, and practices of care. This has been going on for a while, but really has been triggered recently by the report on Van Coor and Finn for the World Health Organization, which confirms the positive impact of the arts on health. And this is well in tune with the United Nations Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. So in this third space between art, science, and the community, we have the biopsychosocial model of art, which has to do with cultural interventions that have the potential to lead to health and well-being and gradually to social stability and economic prosperity. So when we talk about the definition of health, it's very important not only to focus on the absence of disease or infirmity, but also to the social determinants of health and also to creative apperception, which according to the words of Winnicott, makes our life worth living and not a life of compliance. And this is one of the key ingredients and reasons of why we have culture as a key ingredient in cultural policy, so as not to leave anyone behind. So by merging diverse domains, we can have direct benefits in health. And it's really important to join the dots together, because in this process, everyone's role is really important towards social transformation. The storytellers, the weavers, the disruptors, the caregivers, the builders, the visionaries. Everyone is important. Of course, this is not something new. We are hardwired for art. And this is ancient knowledge, as this wall painting, 20,000 years old, documents it. And we can go also to the Greek philosophers talking about harmony and unity of mind and body and how we can have a thriving life. In Ense Epidavros, was the sanctuary of Asclepios, the god of health, who embraced the holistic approach to life and health. And this can be reflected in the wording of the American Association of medical colleges, that medicine is both as art and as science, and the physicians of the 21st century should have a grounding in humanistic values. And we see also in the Age of the Enlightenment the birth of the Encyclopedic Museum and how art and sciences are paired together, and still this magic is unfolding till today. And there's also the healing process of the catharsis that we see it in the theatrical plays of Aristotle and is considered as a therapeutic factor by Yalom. And another interesting word is empathy, which started as a projection of our emotions on objects. It's quite a new word, but now it is about our relationships with other people. It is about mentalizing, about a mind in a mind. And this impact can be measured by biometrical tools for intentional exhibition design. And this is one of the reasons that we see neuroscientists working in museums today. So we have a system-wide strategic planning all around the world. In more than 18 countries, we have social prescribing and cultural prescribing, art on prescription, museums on prescription. In the United States, we had also the first Asia-Pacific Conference in Singapore last November, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts in Canada. We have art therapy on the rise in France as well, with care centers in museums. In Brussels, we have a pilot program for measuring the levels of stress during the pandemic. There is also a big project in the Baltic Sea region, an Interreg European program, the Greek project, and one of the oldest ones is in the UK. The UK, together with Finland and Australia, were among the first countries that targeted art and health for innovation, excellence, and social cohesion. And of course, there are hundreds of programs all around the world in museums. So it is about making healthier museums for resilient communities. The Van Gogh Museum, together with the Museum of the Mind, giving an activistic character to the fight against the stigma of mental health. It is the Ashmolean Museum of Art and also the Cambridge University, and they use cultural resources in online tools in order to support the mental health of the young people and in order to explore how we can deal better with trauma and pain. It is also the Groninger Museum, which has a collaboration with the hospital and the medical center there in the city, and they develop programs for the burnout of the doctors, and we see that also in the New York hospitals, where they combine art therapy with museum learning and social work. The MoMA Museum, the National Museums in Liverpool, the Kagoma Art Gallery in Brisbane have very successful programs for Alzheimer. The MCA Gallery in Sydney has launched a program for how we can talk about our emotions in a public setting. And museums in the US, in collaboration with universities and also with art therapists and teachers, develop social and emotional learning toolkits for making more resilient and inclusive contexts. I launched the first art therapy programs in Thessaloniki 6 years ago for the museum, school, and medical setting. And the last example is from the branch of the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, where we see everything that has to do with health. It is arts, it is sports, it is mindfulness, it is an ecological approach. So as we move towards the future, it's really important to have an overview of what is happening all around the world, but it is really important also to have a balance and a relevance and to adjust everything in our national context for a major high impact, social impact. So on the one hand, it's really important to focus on research, evidence-based practice, on the renewal of methodologies, interdisciplinary practices, but it's really important to build also strategic partnerships. It is important to advocate for the necessary changes in institutions, as for example, trauma awareness training. And within this framework, we can also include the advance of arts in health and the arts therapies, because it's really a very important tool for shaping communities in times of crisis, for building empowerment, resilience, compassion, empathy, for healing and self-care, as Irina mentioned. So culture, yes, is the glue, is the soft power, is the software, can be this magical Jedi that can hold us together. And it's really about living back a legacy of care, because each and every one of us can do a lot of things in this framework. Thank you very much for your attention.